Everybody to our last session of the school year of the Special Ed Family Resource Session for Bellevue School District. Tonight's panel is about how to succeed in a college setting with a disability. So this was promoted for anybody, any families with young adults, and even if young adults are here with disabilities, 504s, IEPs, just kind of what to know. And so we invited a team of pros from the field from different local colleges, and we have someone here from Disability Center Resource Office to talk about kind of just things to know about how to support your young adult. And my role in the district, I'm the transition program coordinator, but I also help out with the family resource sessions. And then before everyone does introductions, Lisa, so these are partnered with the Bellevue Special Needs PTA Committee. And so we have one of the members here, Lisa Ritchie, helps us with these events throughout the year. So we're very grateful for that partnership. And Lisa, did you just want to maybe say a couple words about the Bellevue Special Needs PTA?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a parent of two students in the Bellevue School District who are both on IEPs. And I'm also a board member of the Bellevue Special Needs PTA. We're a district-wide PTA that supports all families with students who are on 504s or IEPs, or maybe think their student should be on one. And we usually have 3 general membership meetings each school year. And our third one was last week. But it was recorded and it's up on our website, which is BellevueSpecialNeedsPTA.com. So you can always check our website to find out what we're doing or follow us on Facebook. And our topic last week goes really well with tonight's topic. We actually had 2 people from the Arc of King County come out and speak, and one of them kind of spoke about what you might consider for your student for college, and one spoke about what you might consider for your student with more of a work path straight out of high school. So it's all recorded and up there, and yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I put your the website in the chat.
Thank you.
Access to that. And so I will, maybe what I'll do is I'll just call each person by your name, and then you can just kind of unmute and just say who you are and kind of where you work. And then Kim Clausen and Kay Gilkey are going to be the 2 moderators for tonight. So Caitlin, why don't you go first? Just kind of maybe introduce yourself and say kind of your role in your institution, and if you do, and kind of what type of population you help serve.
Yeah, awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Creeley. My official job title is Deaf Services Specialist. I work at Bellevue College in the Disability Resource Center. But I do, as my title suggests, work with the deaf students. But I do also work with many other students on campus, around 400 students on my caseload currently. So quite a few. And our office, we provide higher education accommodations. So if you have a student that's transitioning to Bellevue College and they have a 504 or an IEP and they're wanting to continue to have accommodations in college, we're a very great first step to come to. We are admitting new students weekly throughout the year. So we stay busy. We've got a large team as well. So there's about 8 of us on our team that kind of cover all of the services that we provide as an office.
Return north and south.
And yeah, so that's
North and south part 1.
Great, thank you. And just a reminder, if you are not on the panel or moderating, to please mute your mics just so we don't get the background sound, myself included. Thank you, Caitlin. How about, I'll just go in order who's on my screen. Sarah?
Hi, yes, I'm Sarah Sanders Gardner, also work at Bellevue College, not in the Disability Resource Center. I am the director of the Neurodiversity Navigators program, and we serve neurodivergent students. We have a cohort program where the students are taking a series of classes together that are career preparation classes. They also take whatever program of study they are going for. So that could be an associate's degree, it could be a bachelor's degree. It just depends on what they're wanting to do. We are very excited to announce that we are starting in winter quarter a new cohort for disabled students navigating STEM careers. And so that will be all disabilities. So we're really, really excited about that. We got a grant from Microsoft to do that. So yeah, we're really excited about that. So we'll be working closely with the Disability Resource Center on that. It will be similar to the cohort that we're doing now, but it will have a focus on STEM. So that's what we do.
That's very exciting. Thank you, Sarah. How about Erica?
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica He. I'm the program manager of Achieve and Future Launch at Highline College. So Achieve is a transition program for students who are looking to transition with a college experience. So being on college campuses. And we have 2 certificate programs. So the Comprehensive Transition Certificate, which is our 2-year program, and then the Fast Track to Employment, which is our 1-year program. And in both certificates, you get both, academically, you get used to college, but also developing your career as well. And so most of the classes that the Achieve students take are inclusive. So they are with traditional college students, and they're not separated or secluded in that sense. We usually have around 50 students in our cohort every year. So it's kind of a little bit bigger of a program. And then we have advisors who does intensive advising. So they meet with the students every single week. We give guidance on what classes to take, how to navigate the college resources, because a lot of students are like unsure where to go. It's very different from high school, which we'll be talking about on this panel. And then career-wise, we have a career specialist who also supports the students in growing professionally. And also for our 2-year program students, they'll be doing an internship. And we're very much centered around the student. So we always try to find internships that relate to what the student wants to do. And we really want to center them in our focus. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you, Erica. How about Rebecca?
Hi there, everybody. I'm Rebecca Jansen with Mainstay and Sales at Seattle Central College. So we're located on Capitol Hill, and we are at Seattle Central College. So most of our students are there. We have had some at South and North before, but we provide academic supports to students doing the post-secondary track at Seattle Central. So we do planning with students and meet with them weekly. We have academic tutor to help them separate from the traditional tutoring at the college. So it's structured and streamlined for that individual. And so then we assist with time management and support through navigating the classes. We help with registration and financial aid and all those pieces that get overwhelming and confusing to parents and students alike. And then, as the school year progresses, we work with students with their teachers to make sure they're understanding what's being asked of them on the syllabus and help with communication. We try to promote independence as much as possible and teach how to communicate on their own and individually, but we are available to support the students. And so typically we're working to have the student matriculate, but Mainstay has been a supported employment agency for 35 years at Seattle Central College. And so that's where the internships and supported work come in. And so oftentimes when our students leave sales, then they're working with Mainstay to get a job.
Thank you, Rebecca. And last but not least, Pilar.
Sorry, the sentence of the year, you are muted. So good evening. My name is Pilar Lopez, and I'm the Associate Dean for the Occupational and Life Skills Program at Bellevue College. So 3 of my colleagues here, I'm so happy to have you here with me. We are an associate degree program, and we teach students skills that they're going to need to lead a successful work life and to have a fulfilled life too. We have both an academic curriculum and a skills development curriculum, and is taught at the same time in every single class that we have. We have a cohort. We admit a cohort of 32 every year, and this is a 4-year program. And each student chooses a career path that they work on developing in this 4 years. In the last year that they are with us, they do an internship in the career of choice that they have, and I would say that 45% of the students that we place in those internships get hired by the businesses and they start their career there. Around 35% of the students that start careers in businesses are also being promoted and continue being employed in those internships, in those businesses. For us, that is a key for the students to be successful in the workplace and in life. The sense of belonging to a workplace and being successful in the workplace is important to us. We are enrolling right now. Our deadline for the last enrollment date for us is July 1st, and we just finished our enrollment period for the spring. So we have info sessions, 2 other info sessions scheduled in May and June, and the next one is next Tuesday. So if you want to join us to learn more about us, just register online and we can talk.
Great, thank you. That was a really good segue, because the next question is, can you describe the application process, a little more detail about it? How competitive is it? Things like that.
Do you want me to start?
Sure, go ahead.
So for us, the enrollment process starts with attending one of our info sessions, and we require that of every student. We want the students to be interested in attending college. It's not enough that the parents are sending the students. We want the students to show interest and to show that they've made an effort to learn about us and about programs that are suitable for them. In those info sessions, we send them to a class and they visit a classroom and they're there with other students and they get to see how how we teach. They get to meet students and they get to experience OLS. In the application, in our website, you will find our application paperwork. We will need the student to do an application. We will need to know your high school or even college transcript. We also require the student to present educational documentation and then like an IEP, for example, or an evaluation. And then we also ask for 2 recommendation forms. And then the last step will be assessments that we do. So the deadline is July 1st. So 2 weeks later, we will do assessments. And that's it.
Thank you. How about Rebecca?
Hi, so for sales, our application is online and it is a direct document, so it comes straight to me once it's completed. We do ask for educational, similar to Pilar, in that we ask for the educational documents, IEP, and that kind of information. We'll ask who, guidance counselors are and support that workers who've worked with your student. And then we want to get more information in a more natural way. So once we get the application.
Why did you get Oreo food?
We'll talk.
And it's frozen.
Just a reminder, if everyone could mute while the moderator or by the panelists are talking.
And that's okay. We all do these kind of things. Usually I'm yelling at a dog or a child. So,
Surprise.
So So, in a good way, of course. But anyway, so the application process is quite straightforward, and we will give websites later on so that you have them available to you.
Erica.
Yeah, so similar to the other programs, our application is very similar. It's electronic, and then students need to provide a documentation of disability, either IEP or another evaluation. And for us, like other Pilar has said, we want really students who are interested in coming to college. You know, that's the biggest factor of success. Like, you are going to have to choose your classes. You have to be motivated to attend campus events to complete your certificate. The only other thing I would mention is, so for us, since we're located at Highline College, a community college, we are open access, so we don't necessarily have a testing requirement. But like we said, the students are very motivated to attend college and have that experience. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Sarah?
I'm going to put a link to our information session, if that's okay. On this page, we have a video that people can watch, and then we have a Q&A session, and we have 2 more Q&A sessions coming up. They're on the second Tuesday of each month, and so they watch the video first with the student, decide whether you're interested, and then come to the Q&A session to ask questions. After that, the next step would be to be assessed for English placement. We don't need any documentation. If you want to be part of the Disability Resource Center, Caitlin will talk about that, but we don't need any documentation. We do meet with each student. Once they decide they do want to be part of our program, we'll meet with the student, we'll get to know them, we'll talk to them individually first, and then also with the parent. And then we'll explain all the other steps. There is, on our future students page, there's a step-by-step checklist of everything that you need to do. One important thing to note is that there is no charge for our program services. So although you meet with a peer mentor weekly and get all of that executive functioning support, the only charge is for the actual educational part of the program. So you are paying tuition for those courses. Is it competitive? We do have up to 75 spaces each year. We have not yet filled, well, one year we filled 75 spaces. So typically we get to 60. So I always tell families, please apply as soon as possible so that you're certain to get in. I don't want to turn anyone away. Once we get to 75, I have no choice. Like, that's as high as I can go, and that's with all of my courses filled to the brim.
Okay, and then Caitlin.
I'm also going to post our webpage in the chat as well for folks that are interested. But with the Disability Resource Center, it's a little bit different than a program or a specified program in that your student just needs to identify as having a disability and they can walk into our office and receive support. Currently, we do our documentation policy, which is usually the biggest question I get, is extremely flexible. If you're worried about it at all, still come and get in contact with us. We try to make it as accessible as possible. So IEPs, 504 plans, those count as documentation, and many other things. And with the pandemic going on right now, we've actually even suspended the need for documentation as well. The Americans with Disabilities Act does not require us to have anything specific on hand. So institutions are able to kind of decide what that looks like for each disability office. Here, let me put my link in the chat. And then our process, what it kind of looks like is once you reach out, once the student gets in contact with us, we set them up with an initial access meeting. And there's 4 of us in the office that currently do those, myself being one of them. So you may see me again. In that meeting, we talk through what barriers the student experiences in an institutional educational setting, and decide upon accommodations together. As mentioned by a few of my colleagues here, we also are very student-centered, and really want to encourage the student to be able to advocate for themselves and identify those needs, but of course with the support of whoever they're needing in that meeting. So parents can attend as long as we have a release of information from the student, and then we set up accommodations and continue to provide advocacy support and things like that as they're during their time at Bellevue.
Perfect, thank you. Our next question was about how to receive support if you have a disability, but it seems as though you've answered that mostly as far as applying. I wanted to be sure, was there anyone else who wanted to add anything about steps the first step someone should take if they have a disability?
And also maybe the question in the chat, defining disability from your perspective at your school.
Perfect. So Erica, did you have anything else you wanted to add as far as an application and then the first step and then what is disability at your school? Mm-hmm. 3-part question.
Yeah. So I will say, so Achieve is mostly for students with intellectual disabilities. And then if you are another student with any type of disability and you want to get a letter of accommodation, which is different from high school, you will be using our access services, and at each school it's different. Like, at Bellevue, it's named a different service, but you can get accommodations that way and support that way. And I think in general, our faculty are pretty supportive. I will say that, if a student were to mention that, they would refer them to access services. And also some professors are very willing to work with a student to help them succeed in their learning as well. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Rebecca, did you have anything else to add as far as first step in receiving support?
I would definitely, at Seattle Central, the first step of receiving support is typically working with our disability student services and, reaching out to them first. And, knowledge is power, and you're going, and I don't want to skip to a question ahead, but, just going from a high school setting into a college setting, it's so different in that you have a lot of support at the high schools and a lot of guidance, and there can be steps along the way, and typically who to contact. Colleges are larger, sometimes you get lost in the shuffle, and so knowledge is power. And so knowing as much prep as you can possibly do ahead of time is really, really important. So the accessibility student services in the college is really the important piece. Working with an organization like SAILS help you kind of navigate those waters. And we want you to be in the best place. So if SAILS isn't right for you, I've talked with many students about, actually every student that comes our way, we talk about OLS and we talk about Highline, and we've spoken about Navigators, even though I haven't met Sarah yet. Nice to meet you, Sarah. And I don't know everything there is to know about all the programs, but they're stellar, and everybody wants you to be in the right place. So if it's not a right fit for you, we're going to say, you should talk to Pilar and connect. And so we're all here for the same reason, and that's to help your student be successful. And that's why we're here. And then the last part of the question, I don't even know, but I think I answered it okay.
You did great, thank you. Sarah, what about you? Anything different you wanted to add, or anything you just wanted to add about receiving support in a college setting if you have a disability? And how would you define a disability in your program?
And we do send them to Erica too at Highline. Erica, I haven't met you before, but yeah, that's
you all work together. That's great.
Yeah. So I would say not every student in our program uses disability resources, but I highly recommend disability resources. My definition of disability for the most part is someone who is disabled by their environment. And that's how disability resources helps, is they provide accommodations that remove those barriers that are in the environment, whether those are testing barriers or other barriers that come up that are in the environment that the accommodation can remove for you. So that's kind of why I think those two, the definition of disability and the Disability Resource Center, kind of go hand in hand.
Perfect, thank you. Pilar, how about you? Anything different?
I would say that I love my colleague Sarah because she's playing it really, really well. We do, as Rebecca was saying, we do send people to each other all the time. I just sent a couple your way, Erica, by the way. Again, as Rebecca was saying, we want the students to be successful at any given point in their lives. We want them to be successful. We want them to be a great experience for them. That being said, as Sarah was saying, the environment in many cases is the reason for the disability or the barrier for the disability. In our program, we find that students find that yes, the environment is the reason for the disability, but even when the environment is modified, they still have challenges to access a mainstream curriculum. So we have a curriculum that is designed specifically for students with disabilities, or our classes are designed following universal design, the model of universal design learning, and we try to infuse accessibility and technology in the classes so that the students can use those resources to learn better, to access the learning, let's say, better. We have student support teams that help the students with mostly with executive functioning challenges and difficulties that most of them have with organization and initiation and shifting and things like that. And we also help them with social skills, which is something that many students just try to get and make friends, and they just don't know how to start that process. So we also support them with that. We call our students tweeners. They are kind of in between. They don't have, or they're close to borderline intellectual disability sometimes. And usually the student that gets is not a transition student. It's almost there, but not quite. That is the student that comes to our program. It's difficult to describe right now, but if you come to an info session, I will describe it and you will get it immediately. But that's what we are. We are a program for tweeners, for in-between students.
Thank you. Caitlin, I think that you might have answered this already when you first were talking, but did you have anything you wanted to add about this, about students receiving their first step in receiving support in college or in your program?
I think I think I did answer this, and then I think with everyone's information, they also included accessibility services as well. So as you've probably noticed, at each college it's named something different. It's usually accessibility services, disability services, resource center. There's a lot of different names for it, but my recommendation whenever new students come into college and if they experience barriers in an educational setting, first step is get in touch with that office. I know I can speak for Bellevue, and I know that a lot of our other colleges around the area do the same, but we'll also help get you connected with other resources. So if something's mentioned at our initial meeting and they don't know where to go, we'll usually provide those resources. Or, you know, if they mention neurodiversity, we might connect them with Sarah. You know, so we try to do our best to do that as well. But yeah, I think it's been answered well.
Thank you. You seem to pull it all together. Perfect. Thank you. We'll move on to our next question.
Can I respond to Xander's question real quick?
Yes.
So Xander asked a question, can we have representation of whatever disability we're talking about be on the next Zoom? And Xander, I am thinking that you mean have disabled people on the Zoom. Is that what you mean? Can you say in the chat? I think that's what Xander means. So
we can probably watch for the answer to that
yeah.
and then bring it up in the end, if that would be okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Kay, do you want to go ahead with the next question?
Yeah, and actually, since Sarah, you're on, how about you first? So what do you think is the main difference between the levels of support for young adults with disabilities in high school versus college, but also maybe what are the, in a positive light, what are the supports that in your school, in your college, that students with disabilities would receive?
Okay, so in high school, disabled students received two different kinds of supports. They can receive supports through the IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disability and Education Act, which are supports that are designed to teach them skills and help them reach certain levels of ability. So that might be pull-out services for speech and language. That might be occupational therapy. That might be a lot of different things. They also receive accommodations. That's the law everywhere. You need to receive accommodations to remove those barriers that I was talking about. In college, you are no longer receiving skill building services because the IDEA is only for K through 12. The law still applies, though, for accommodations. However, it's the 504. So if you have a 504 in high school, the 504 law still applies in college. However, and it applies when you get a job as well. However, it's a new environment. So, and every college is a different environment. So you're not going to get the exact same accommodations in college that you got in high school because it's a different situation and a different place, a different building, different classes, different people. So you have to go through the accommodations conversation again to decide what is appropriate for the new situation that you're in. That's the difference.
Perfect. Erica, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, you know, I think Sarah, you explained it very well. I think the only thing I would add to keep in mind is, like we said, in high school, these are provided, and like sometimes students, like the teachers tell you, like you have these accommodations, right? But in college, it's really up to the students. Just because, let's say you have a disability, you don't have to use accommodations or choose to use a letter of accommodations. Like some of my students, depending on the class and their accommodation, they're like, oh, I want to use my accommodation in my English class, but I feel pretty good about my math class, so I don't want to use my accommodation letter, which might mean extra time or note taking or something like that. So, you know, I just want to tell the students out there, like, you know, in the college setting, it's up to you and what you want to use and being able to advocate for yourself in that way.
Perfect. Thank you. Caitlin?
I think Sarah did a fantastic job at explaining the differences. That is usually something that I will explain in my access meetings as well. The other piece that Sarah did mention, and I will also say, is that in the K through 12 setting, you have typically a larger group of support. Because of what the law says, you're able to have, there's kind of usually multiple people that wrap around the student to provide the services that they need. Once you're in college, it's more student driven. So the student is kind of calling the shots, is making the steps, is taking the initiative. And then of course they have, like at Bellevue, they'll have their access specialist who may, it's one of me or my 3 other counterparts, that provides that support, but it's a little bit more self-led. So that's a big difference that I usually like to work with students on. And at Bellevue specifically, and I'm sure a lot of other colleges, we help the students grow in that self-advocacy as well during their time at Bellevue, because it's a safe space to do that. So we do help with that too, and encourage students to start kind of taking those steps confidently, so that they can identify what they need and be able to have those skills once they leave college as well. So
perfect. Thank you. Rebecca?
So I agree, Sarah, you nailed that. So I don't need to belabor that, but I would say with sales, and I'm not sure if I've been clear on that, sales is working with students who can handle the academic process and rigors of the academic classroom, because they are typically enrolled in classes that everyone is going to. They're not special classes, but sales is a fee-for-service program, so it goes above and beyond the 504 accommodations with support and one-to-one assistance for time management and that kind of thing. So it's teaching someone how to study and how to learn and how to take notes better on their own. But that said, definitely the accessibility and disability student services programs are where you would want to get a lot of this information and set up a plan. And that is true that in the high school settings, you know, students have all these resources as far as parents and involvement. And then it's important to know that, you know, at college, sometimes you need that extra support to navigate all the systems, because just registration is complicated, just financial aid, placement in the math. There was a question about math and capabilities and what functioning levels we're talking about in the different programs. And that's hard to pinpoint in a panel discussion like this, but we can talk more in depth if we need to.
And then Pilar.
I only will add that, I mean, everybody has said what we need to say, and I would just add that not every, and this is Sarah was mentioning this, but every college is different. I have a son at UW, and he has a disability, and the process has not been as easy as it is, for example, at Bellevue College. It is more challenging. They are demanding paperwork. They are demanding, you know, more steps, and the process is not as swift as other colleges make it. So before you enroll, figure it out, investigate, watch it, and see if that is the place where you want to be, if they are not making it easy for you to even apply for disability resource services. So again, it depends on the college. And I think that legally, every college can do the minimal, or they can go beyond. So that's what we are.
Thank you. And actually that refers to a couple questions people had about, do other schools also have disability programs or special services? And 504 is a federal law, and they will have something, but every school is different. So Kim?
All right. Erica, did you want to add anything to the last question? I don't know if you did. Okay.
Oh, no, I already did. Thank you.
Okay, okay, perfect. We've kind of talked about this. I just want to be sure that we have covered it. It was about what types of accommodations are available in college settings. I think we've pretty much covered this. I see everyone shaking their head, so I'm assuming, unless someone would like to unmute and discuss this a little more. Okay, then I'm going to go on to the next question. Are academic tutors or counselors available to help students with disabilities? And Caitlin, that seems like a great question for you to start out with.
Yeah, so, and I'd love to address a little bit of Xander's question here too, since it's related. And I know just Xander, as a disclaimer, I don't know much about what you experienced as an individual, but and with situations where I've had students with disabilities that impact energy, chronic pain, that flare during different seasons. One of the fantastic things that has happened through this pandemic is that we've all discovered a way to do things remotely. And that is a fantastic accommodation that we can now start relying more heavily on for students who can still continue with their work, but maybe coming to campus is a barrier. Maybe attending class daily is a barrier. Maybe even attending a Zoom session is a barrier. So there we have a lot of doors have been opened with this pandemic that the disability community has been trying to preach for a long time, but the rest of the world has now caught up and knows that these are options that we have now, and they're things that we can start emphasizing as accommodation options for students that experience very similar things that you experience, Xander. And again, I don't know you personally. If you end up coming to Bellevue, I'd love to meet you. But that's one fantastic thing that's come out of this awful roller coaster of a year. But there are a lot of options, and we really do try to figure out a lot of different things to help support the individual specifically to what the barriers that you hit on your own. And then the question in the chat, thank you. Academic tutors and counselors available for students with disabilities. So at Bellevue, we have an accommodation specifically that allows our students to get in touch with an academic tutor, a one-on-one tutor, based on disability need. We also have general services for tutoring. So we have our Academic Success Center that has a bunch of tutoring options, even offered remotely, which is something that's been fantastic about that. Counselors, we have also available at Bellevue College. I think one thing that I really love about our counseling center specifically is that we focus on getting diversity in our counselors. So counselors that speak different languages and that are from different ethnic backgrounds so that they can connect with our students. It makes it a lot easier to connect when someone is very similar to who you are. And may be able to relate to some of the experiences you've had. So we have a large counseling center. We don't have any specific disability counselors, if I'm understanding the question correctly. But of course, we do a lot of references frequently. So when we're on campus, we'll walk students up to the counseling center. Since being remote, we'll connect students with the counseling center remotely as well. So.
Thank you, Caitlin. Erica?
For Highline College, it's very similar for students who are just using our regular traditional access services. They can go to the tutoring center, they can go to any counselor. Highline College has been very proactive about meeting equity and diversity needs of our student population. Like recently, our Equity and Diversity Week, disability was included as one of the identities. So usually it's always like based on race or gender, but that's becoming a normal part of the conversation. I'll say that. And then for Achieve specifically, we do have peer navigators who are Highline College students. So they're student workers who are paid, and they help the Achieve students navigate campus. So when they first get to campus, peer navigators help Achieve students get around, get to know the campus, link them to resources, help them join clubs. Sometimes they maybe help with homework, but it's like in a peer-to-peer format. And some of our peer navigators are also in the same classes as our Achieve students. Like last quarter, I had a peer navigator who wasn't really helping, like assigned to the student, but they happened to be in the same computer science course. So then they had some things in common. So those are the type of supports we have at Highline College.
Perfect, thank you. How about Pilar?
So we do our students use the services of the counseling center, the general counseling center at Bellevue College, and we do have a counselor that works more with our students just because she prefers it, she likes it, and our students like her too. As in terms of support, we have our own in-house support system. We have a what we call a student support team. We have a program manager and 2 student support coaches, and they help students with academic and executive functioning and social support. So it's all an in-house kind of thing. We also have students who go to the Disability Resource Center and they ask for a scribe, or they ask for different accommodations. And they just use them in the classroom. So it very much depends on the student, so and the situation.
Thank you. Rebecca, how does that work at Seattle Central?
So Seattle Central has academic tutors and behavioral counselors and various counselors, guidance counselors available to the general student population. However, at Sales, we're a really small organization, and we also have a very small cohort. So usually we have 5 to 8 students per quarter going through our program. And they're in varied different, backgrounds and taking different classes and courses. But each student is assigned to a rehabilitation counselor who has experience with disabilities and working with people with disabilities, and a lot of experience in education and in the college setting. So each person is assigned to a rehabilitation counselor, and then also at Sales we have a specific academic tutor who knows how to work with our students better. Because if you're going to Seattle Central and you want a tutor in general, you sign up for a tutor and you may see someone different every time. So our students tend to thrive with a person who's going to be there at their convenience, not at the academic tutor's convenience, and scheduling on their time. And so that's how it works at Sales.
Thank you. Sarah, did you want to add anything? I know you put some things in the chat that have been useful. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that I feel like Bellevue College has done a really excellent job of getting tutoring online, getting counseling online. We've got drop-in tutoring for all of the different subjects, and then also one-on-one tutoring. And you can pretty much see a tutor any time of day, on the weekends and everything. And I will say one of the things that we do in our program is support the students. Their peer mentors do most of this, is support the students in accessing campus resources. And so they use all the resources of the college. They use the social resources, they use the counseling, they use the tutoring, they use everything that's open to all of the other students, because we believe this gives them the best option in their future, right? If they're going to go to another college or if they're going to go to work, we want them to understand how to access what's available to everyone. So that's kind of how we do it. But our tutoring center is just really amazing. So we're pretty happy with that.
Nice, thank you. So we're going to move on to the other questions. I do want to let you know that we are collecting questions in the chat. And at the end, if we have time, we'll go back to those, some of the ones that are in the chat. All right. Kay, do you want to take the next question?
Sure. And how about, since Sarah, you're on, we'll just go ahead and start with you. Are there any sort of career services or transition services that support students upon their exit from your college?
So we are focused on career the entire time they're with us. They take cohort classes from the time they enter, and Bellevue College is really about career. I mean, that's why they're there, is mostly why they're there, is to get the education that will lead to a career. The courses that they're taking are not your typical career courses, though. They're really focused on identity development and feeling confident in themselves so that they can bring their best self to the table. And so they're learning about their strengths, and they're learning about their personal strengths. They're learning about their values. They're learning about career strengths eventually, but they start with just themselves and who they are. We are a program of the Center for Career Services, so we're closely connected with the career services. Also, the counselors at our college are career counselors, and so they can go for career services to do all those assessments and find out their strengths and talk about careers, but they also can go to a career counselor who can discuss, you know, their feelings and the other things around careers that is also so important. We, as part of our disabled students navigating STEM, they're going to get Microsoft disabled mentors from people who work at Microsoft, which is going to be super exciting. I'm very excited to get that going. Caitlin, I know you're going to be excited to have some of your students connected to them. And we do have in the last year that they're with us, if they're with us for 3 years, some of them are there for 2 years, some of them are there for 3 years, some of them are there for 4 years if they're pursuing a 4-year degree or longer. Nationwide, it's taking students about 6 years to finish a 4-year degree on average. That's just all students, not disabled students. We have a preparing for and finding internships class that they take, and then an internship. Not every student gets an internship. You know, you have to qualify for an internship, but we do have an internship that students can have, which is being a peer mentor to a disabled high school student. Right now it's neurodivergent high school students. Sorry, Xander. That's a different program that we're doing. So yeah. So sorry, I lost my thread because I was reading the chat. What was I saying? I could probably stop.
Okay. About the internships. Okay, Erica?
Yeah, similarly, you know, career is infused from the very beginning as well. So for our Achieve cohort, we have a career specialist who works with students. They do little workshops around career aspects, some light touch stuff like resume, informational interviews, but the career specialist also finds internships for students in our comprehensive transition certificate in their first year, and does job coaching too, so they'll be supported in the internship. And then Highline College is also an employment vendor. So the other half of our department, Community Employment Services, they you know, have employment consultants, and we have a specific team that works with the Achieve students. So they meet with the students once a quarter in their first year, but then towards the second year, they meet more frequently and then help the students transition, like think about what they want to do, and then help them with finding a job if that's what the student wants to do. You know, some of our students do want to continue their education afterwards and earn a higher degree, or some of them do want to go straight to work, or there are many who want to do a little bit of both. They want to work part-time and they want to go to school part-time too.
Mm-hmm. And then Rebecca, how about at Seattle Central?
Well, this is where we shine because sales is part of Mainstay, and Mainstay's been around since 1985. I feel like I've been around since 1985, but it's not true. So we do supported employment in the community, and we have positions everywhere from the mayor's office to private public sector, city of Seattle, King County, and all of that kind of stuff. So, we've talked about a lot of different things from internships and employment and that kind of thing. And a lot of times when people are coming out of high school, they're going to college to kind of have fun and explore options. You don't have to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you come out of high school. So that's kind of what we encourage at Sales, is to kind of go take some cool different classes to kind of get a feel for what you want to do. I know I wanted to be pre-med, and then I took organic chemistry, and that's all she wrote. Like, I was out, peace, I've got to go. So, there's just, and also the transition is really hard, and people are laughing because it's so true. The transition is really hard. I was an honor society student, National Honor Society. I had a great grade point average. And then my first semester at college, I failed terribly. Like, I didn't fail, but I got C's and D's, and that's not good, right? But it wasn't because the academic was challenging for me, but it was also just about the transition. I lost my grandfather, left the boyfriend, so all these things are happening for our students too, whether you have a disability or not. So I think I totally went off tangent, but I think that was just an important thing to say about, we're here to kind of figure out what the student wants to do. And, work is called work because it's not play. So we're trying to figure out what's going to be a career for you, and what are hobbies and things like that that make you a more well-rounded person. So we want to start with a guided pathway of, like, what are things that might interest you? What are some classes that you might want to take? Who are some cool teachers that we know are here who really might support you well? Let's start with that and then work our way towards, because we're just starting with some credits, and trying to figure out what you want. Of course, we're going to do the math placements and the English placements and figure out where you fit. But it's really, college is a time to explore what you want. And so, when I'm listening to kids and students graduating, I hear like a computer scientist or computer engineer, but they've never taken a coding class or a programming class. So these are the time to explore and get your feet wet and try different things to see where you fit. And so we're working in regard to employment, though, the actual question, we're looking towards employment the whole time. And we've had students, just as like Erica said, we've had students find out that college wasn't for them. And even though we would say, okay, would you want to try this kind of program or this kind of program, they found out college just was not their bag. And so then they went straight on to look for a job. But we know that individuals who go to college do get better paying jobs typically. And so if you can have some college coursework under your belt, it's really, really advantageous. And so then we've had students have part-time jobs that we help find while they're in college. So it's kind of been the gamut. So that's my answer.
Great, thank you. Alar?
Goodness, what can I add to that? As I mentioned before, our students start developing that career path from the moment they start at OLS. So it takes a lot of work for them to kind of make those mistakes and investigate and say, oh, I want to be a veterinarian, and then as Rebecca was saying, they do a job shadow and they find that really. They don't want to see a cat euthanized, and that is the end to all of that. So it is a time to explore, and they have plenty of time for that. And as I mentioned, that this last 6 months that they spend with us, they do that internship, and they are supported by a program manager, by an internship program manager that kind of leads them all the way through until graduation. And we support them during the employment search phase if they don't get hired by those internships. And what we do is we connect them with these two wonderful people and some others to provide that help that they need. We usually also, that's coming up actually in 2 weeks, we have a meeting with students and parents, and we bring in agencies, external agencies that are going to be able to provide services and support services. Some agencies you probably know already, like the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. And then we also bring in the agencies like Mainstay or Highline, and that can provide services once they are on the job or help them find that job. So it's more of a connection that we do. But we don't connect them, or we don't have an agency in our program that helps them find employment after graduation.
Thank you. And then Caitlin.
I think, not to say this once more, but I think Sarah did a great job at describing the things that came to mind when I read this question. At Bellevue, we have a career center that's pretty fantastic, and helps with a lot of different things. And then, like Sarah mentioned, we also have the counseling centers is trying to do career academic advising, which is something that I refer my students to all the time. So we have, oh, and Sarah just put in the chat that the Center for Career Connections is also open to the community, which I did not know. So that's awesome. I know that they provide a lot of really good resources. And then I do know that when we were on campus, where the student programs part of our school was doing a lot of workshops. I know that they did a lot of forward-looking professional workshops, resume building, interview skills, all sorts of different things. So I think that Bellevue really tries to have a lot of options open for students with whatever goals that they have in mind. We really try to provide what they need. So yeah.
All right. We've been talking about this transition to college, and it is certainly emotionally, it's an emotional transition as far as and also academic transition. It's so different. So we're wondering about what kind of advice can you give to high school families and students that will set them up for success? That's the first part of it. The second part is there anything that families can do now to set up their student for success in college? Let's see. Rebecca, would you mind taking that first?
I would say definitely talking with the different programs that are here today and get a taste for take a tour, virtual or otherwise, talk with all of us, kind of find out where you fit. That would be a first step, I would say. Starting as early as you can is really super important. Again, I say knowledge is power, and just knowing what's out there, because and talking to the guidance counselors and special education teachers at the high schools, helping, getting as much information as you can, starting as early as you can. We have job foundations, which is employment programs, and pre-ETS, which is pre-employment and training services, and that's one-to-one coaching, and they're happening earlier and earlier. We're meeting, sophomores and juniors to work on transition skills, and those are for students who want jobs at that time. So, we hear that, like, if students with intellectual disabilities who are connected with King County DDA, it's something like if people, you guys can help me with this, if people at the age of 21 do not have if people do not have a job by the time they're 21, 61% will not work. if they're with King County and have developmental disabilities. So that's why they're trying to reach students earlier and earlier. So that may not be 100% relevant to your student, but what I'm trying to say is prepping as much as possible, understanding the financial aid kind of situation. Will you need it? Will you not? Understanding what the registration requirements for school or the placement requirements. It's a lot. And you already have a lot on your plate as a parent of students with disabilities. So starting as early as you can is my biggest recommendation.
Thank you. Sarah, do you have something to add?
I do.
Great.
I agree with everything Rebecca said. I'm going to give two very specific pieces of advice. Parents, learn about learned optimism. Students, learn about self-advocacy and realize that you will never ever know enough about self-advocacy. It is a lifelong skill. Everyone on this call, are you still learning about self-advocacy? Yes. We all learned a lot more about it this past year, right? How to ask for help when we need it. So those two things, parents learned optimism, just Google it, Google is your friend. Students, self-advocacy, practice it, practice it, practice it. Parents, don't do it for them, let them do it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Sarah. That's great advice. Caitlin?
Let's see. To set students up for success. One, again, not to make this a trend, I'm going to echo Sarah's words. I love that. One thing that I would recommend is to set up folks for success. With the self-advocacy piece, I think one thing that I've learned over my time at Bellevue is that it's great to continue being curious and reaching out for resources and getting in touch with those resources. Another really important piece as a student, learn about your disability. Fantastic piece of advice I've heard, so that you can better identify what barriers you hit and find out what exactly you need and how to advocate for yourself. Families, one thing I love about the Neurodiversity Navigators program is the parent piece that they have in that program, which really helps you transition from a parent to a support person, or a parent to a roommate, because once your student jumps into college, that's what it becomes. It's a very different relationship. So I think I've never been a parent. I will someday, but I do know that transition is really difficult, and being able to prepare yourself for that as a parent is really important. So that's what I would say.
That's great advice. Rebecca, do you have any advice for parents and students?
I feel like I went already. Erica, you in?
Erica?
Oh, yeah, sure. Like everyone just so great at covering everything. Second, what everyone has said. The only thing I would add is I think someone mentioned this in a previous question, but college is a time for exploration, and nutrition program is a time for exploration. For students themselves, think about things that you want to try and haven't tried before. Like this last quarter, we had a student who his ideal job was to be a film critic. His family was like, no, that's not gonna happen. But we got him an internship at the newspaper writing a film column every week. And now he's gonna do it was wonderful. And he's gonna actually work for the newspaper next year. So, anything can be possible. Just be open to new possibilities and try new things. It doesn't have to be the end all be all. And then also, sometimes things aren't going to work out. When I transitioned to college too, I didn't do so well academically. And so, that might be just for one class, but if you take the class with a different professor, it might be different too. So just being open to those possibilities.
All right, thank you. How about Pilar? Any other advice for families, students?
From professional experience and personal experience, I will tell you that your child is going to make bad decisions, and that you have to be okay with that, because you would be okay with any other child of yours without a disability making bad decisions, because bad decisions are a way to learn, are a way to grow, are a way to be held accountable, to learn about yourself and to learn about the environment. So we cannot protect our children forever. We cannot be there forever. And this is something that you need to start thinking about, is how are you going to be teaching your child how to learn, how you are helping your child help themselves, let's say. So this is as much as a learning experience for your child as it is for you. And it takes a lot of effort as a parent to start that distancing and start that guidance that needs to happen a little bit from far. And I will say something, I will bring back our wise person here, Sarah, that taught me this beautiful concept of codependence. There's nothing like independence. And maybe you can explain it better than me, Sarah, but I learned it from you. So teach your children that there will always be needing someone in their lives. Like that if my car has a flat tire, I will need to stop someone to help me, because I would not be able to fix my car. So your child will always be needing someone, and that is okay. So self-advocacy is a need. Making mistakes is a need, and learning to kind of take some distance and let them experience and let them fail sometimes is needed. And then one thing as a parent that I will like to remind everybody is that growth continues to happen, and it happens exponentially once the students get to that age of, the 17, 18, 19, up to 26, 27. That is, I would have never imagined when my son was diagnosed many years ago, and I was told that he will never read or write, that he would be describing and explaining the table of elements in his class, in his chemistry class, to other students. I mean, the growth continues to be there. Trust that is going to happen, and that is going to happen for your child. So be hopeful, plan ahead, plan soon, plan early, because college is possible for everybody.
Thank you. You have answered so many questions for us tonight. We really appreciate it. So much knowledge right here. So we have a few minutes left, and we have some questions from parents. So I think we'll go ahead and we'll ask the questions, and then if you happen to have an answer, you can go ahead and answer. We won't just go around to each person. So one question is from a parent. It says, for the programs, what grade level would you say they are developmentally to be admitted? Like at least 4th grade level? Do they have to be in a certain level for reading, math, or writing? Does that question?
I think that was for me.
Question? Pardon
yes.
me?
I think that was a question for me. For OLS, what we require is fourth grade reading, writing, and math levels. And also we have an IQ requirement of 70 or more.
All right, thank you.
Anyone
Erica, what
else?
about you? Do you have
Yeah,
requirements?
so like I mentioned before, we're an open access program, so we do not have a testing requirement or necessarily any minimum reading or math level.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca?
We actually do have placement in English and math. There's definitely assistance and support for English learners. And so we have that available to us. But yes, in order to participate in many of the classes, they'll have to have, unless they're going to audit those classes, and they'll have to have placement exams in English and math.
Thank you. Sarah?
We have, so this is kind of a two-part question here because they said developmentally and then they also asked about reading and writing. So,
Exactly.
So for math, we don't care, but I do want to address that. For reading and writing, because of the educational portion of our class, although we are an open access institution, we do request that students assess into English 072, which is 2 levels below English 101, which is college level English. I don't know what reading level that is, but we do ask students to assess into that just so they can access the educational portion of our program. If they do not assess into that, our college has an absolutely wonderful adult basic education program. And we have had many, many students enter into the adult basic education program, learn their English skills through there, and then come up into the Neurodiversity Navigators program. In fact, one of those students is now attending DigiPenn Institute of Technology, pursuing a bachelor's in fine arts and animation. So one never knows. So it is not the end of the world if you don't get into English 072 right away. For math, the thing I have to say is that is another little piece of advice I have for everyone. If you plan to pursue an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, do everything you can to keep your math skills up right now and always and through the summer and all the time. Go on Khan Academy or whatever. Now, developmentally, I am not a believer in developmental age. Everyone is the age that they are. However, to attend college, a student is responsible to meet the student code of conduct. So do some research onto what is the student code of conduct, what the student will be expected to do. At our college, because we've had this neurodiversity program now for 10 years, if a student violates the student code of conduct and they have a developmental disability, it will be responded to in a developmental manner. And so they will be not just reprimanded, not told to fix it, they will be supported in finding ways to work through whatever is happening for them. So we have had students make amazing strides in behavioral difficulties that they've been having. So I wouldn't be too concerned unless you have a student who just cannot handle themselves at all. So that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you. Caitlin, did you have anything to add?
We don't, just because we provide the academic access, we don't have any requirements besides what Bellevue sets up. So Bellevue has, like Sarah mentioned, adult basic education classes. We're open enrollment. We do recommend that when you get accepted at Bellevue that you take the English and math placement test, but that's just to figure out what level students are at and where to get them started. And then the second they're a Bellevue College student, they can come into our office. So regardless of placement, they have access to our services no matter what.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
I posted the next question in the chat. What's the graduation rate for students in your program or college? And typically, how long does it take to get a degree? I know some of you kind of touched on that already.
I guess I can go first for that one. And earning their Achieve certificate, whether it's so we have the 2-year degree and then the 1-year degree fast track to employment. So all of our students usually finish on time. And I would say they usually about 95% of our students graduate. There might be some attrition, maybe some students might find that's not a good fit for them, but the ones who do attend do graduate. And so that's for the certificate portion, but like I said, some of our students do want to continue on either at Highline or move on to a different college to pursue an associate's or a bachelor's or something, but they start out here with Achieve, taking some of their required courses like English, math, or computer science classes, or art classes or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
For us is, I would say that around 80% of the students that enter the program graduate 4 years after. We have, I would say, I don't remember that the actual percentage, but we have many students that continue after OLS in a bachelor's or associate's. And we have a student right now finishing his bachelor's in computer science at Bellevue College. We also have students that once they have experienced that career, that they kind of got a first step on with the internship, they continue and they get certificates. For example, we have students that are now certified nurse assistants, medical assistants. We have students that are, we have one student who is a train conductor. And we have students that are vet assistants. So they go and specialized in that career that they chose. So yeah, for us it's 4 years because we are a 4-year program.
Yes, and I was going to chime in. So we have about an 80% graduation rate. Most of our students have gone on to Bellingham or different locations for school. So, and we're a newer program, so many of our students are still going through school. And then many have changed into careers and not gone on to college, not on to completion or matriculation. So, but yes, and typically students are staying between 2.5 and 3 years with us.
Sarah, Caitlin, do you have anything to add?
I have no idea. So we've been doing this for 10 years. It's super hard to track when you have 75 new students every fall, where they're going as far as like, are they going to another college? Are they, because they transfer, they do lots of different things. And I wasn't really keeping track in the first 5 or 6 years. So that's just kind of on me. It's hard to keep track at a community college, what happens to students, like where they go. It's when you have a self-contained program, that's a little easier to do. We have really good fall to fall retention. So we have about 90 to 95% fall to fall retention, but then what happens after that is harder to track. We've had good graduations over the past few years as the momentum's been getting bigger. But community colleges as a whole, their general population don't have like stellar graduation rates. So that's another thing. It's hard for me to say like a number, but our students that are sticking with it are doing really well and getting good jobs and graduating and being happy. It's hard to say how long it typically takes to get a degree. We have students who are getting their associates in 2 years, getting their bachelor's in 4 years. And then we have some who are taking longer, either because they're choosing to take fewer classes per quarter, or they have a job and so they're balancing that. So there's a lot of different reasons, and that's another great thing about a community college is you can do that.
Okay, and Caitlin, do you have anything to add?
Not entirely. The one thing that came to mind, I think that has been mentioned, is because like Sarah said, it's especially at Bellevue, a lot of our students are non-traditional. So I have a ton of students that will come that are coming for a couple quarters and then they're leaving. Or right now with the pandemic, they're coming to Bellevue because our classes are cheaper. So there's a lot of diversity in what success looks like and what completion looks like. But one thing I know that in our office, we've been trying to do more research, not research, but data collection recently over the last year or so. So hopefully eventually we'll get some more concrete numbers. I know that the college has done some research or some data collection as well. And the one fact that has stood out to me over the information that I've learned is that most students that take math and English in their first year have a higher rate of success, and that's across the board. So that's something that I usually try to tell my very new students too, that if you're terrified of math, get into it anyways. Take care of it that first year, because that is data that is concrete and that has shown that it's easier for students to continue and flourish in their degree if they get those pieces out of the way. But of course, there are also people on the planet that love math and they get degrees in math, so that's not really a factor. So it really depends on the individual as well.
Great, thank you. And you actually all answered the next question in this question. So do you have anything to add? We have just 3 minutes left. Anything that you'd like to tell families? No? Okay, thank you. This was super helpful. Jen, I don't know if she's still here, but she's going to post the recording. So people who missed questions or want to go back and hear it again to get more information, we'll have it posted. And we'd like to thank you for joining us.
I just also wanted to add to anyone who joined late, all the presenters put their information in the chat in the beginning, so you can go back and look at that. And if you want to connect with them, you could do so. But we really appreciate you presenters being here today. It was really helpful for all the families and students that were here. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you all. Have a good evening.
Okay, should we stop the recording?
Yes.